Okay, problems. Practice exam 1. Problems you had to do to turn in. Big mess. 24 plus 12 divided by 4 times 3. Remember, if you just follow PEMDAS, you'll do the M first, which is a mistake. So you have to do the division first. Divide 12 by 4, and that makes 3. Now, everything else, write exactly the way that it already was. Don't change it. Now, again, you don't add until you've multiplied. So then you have to do 3 times 3, which makes 9. Then you have a -1 there. And you have a 25. Now you can just add it all together. 24 plus 9 is 33. And when you take away 1, you get 32. Okay, so that's 1A. Now, B, parentheses, trumps everything. So you have to do -27 take away 3. Now be careful with the signs, because if you screw this up, it'll still work, but you'll have the wrong number. The mistake would be that people would tell me that this is -24, and then divide that by 2, and it works, but that's not the right answer. If you lose 27 and you lose 3, you lost 30. Now again, be very careful. This plus 1 is there screaming for you. Now notice, if you did 2 plus 1, you get 3. And notice that 30 is divisible by 3. So this is a trap, and you wouldn't even know you did it wrong because it still divides into 30. So first you do the division. Remember, you're dividing a negative by a positive. Cut 30 in half, you get 15, and it's negative because it's a negative over a plus, and then add 1. If you owe me 15 and you pay me 1, you only owe me 14. So the answer to that one is -14. Okay, 2B and 3B both involve the fractions, so I'm going to try to do them simultaneously. Now again, this question I taught you a very specific technique, and that was to take the bigger numbers, write them as products of smaller numbers, and then cross them out. This is the easiest way to do this. This is your work. If you decide you don't want to do that, then you're going to lose points. If you're going to start crisscrossing, the chances are you're going to make a mistake because you can't possibly keep track of all this crisscrossing if you don't write the numbers down. So for 21, I'm going to write 7 and 3. Why? Because 7 times 3 is 21. For 55, I'm going to write 5 times 11. I don't have a choice. There's no other pair there. Now, I have choices for 36. I'm going to leave it alone a minute. 88, since I see an 11, for 88, I'm going to pick 8 and 11. Why? Because I already have an 11 there. You can pick 44 and 2, but I don't have a 44 or a 2 on the bottom yet. Now, 63, I'm going to pick 9 and 7. Why? Because I already have a 7 here. So I want that 7 to cross that 7 out. Now, since I picked a 9, now I'm going to take 36 and write 9 and 4. You know, there's a lot of choices for 36. But since I wrote 63 with 9 and 7, I may as well use 9 for 36. Now, for 24, I have a lot of choices. You know, you can pick 8 and 3, and that's a good strategy because, look, there's an 8 here. You can pick 6 and 4. That'll work too. So for 24, I'm going to pick 8 and 3. Now start crossing out. 7's cross out. This 3 crosses out this 3. This 9 crosses out that 9. This 8 crosses out that 8. This 11 crosses out that 11. Gone, 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 gone. There's a 4 left. Gone, 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 gone. There's a 5 left. Yay! 4/5. You know, be smart about how you pick the pair so you can do this more efficiently. There's no wrong way to do this as long as you break the numbers down. I mean, unless you know, if you took 24 and you put 8 and 4, well, then you fucked up. But, you know, as long as you pick a pair that makes the number, it's going to work. You just might have a few more steps to do at the end. But if you pick the numbers very intelligently, I mean, you see how everything crossed out for me, and I just got 4/5. All right, so easy peasy. Now, the next one is addition. So remember, the technique that I taught you was write out the multiples of both numbers and take the least common. And then the amount that you wrote out, right, it's very simple. So I have 10. So I'm going to write 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now for 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. Yay! There's my least common multiple, right? So my goal is to turn both of those fractions into equivalent fractions with a bottom of 30. So for 10, 1, 2, 3, that's what you put there. So multiply the top and bottom of this one by 3. Now for 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you multiply it by 5. You don't have to do that, but it's easier. 3 times 3 on top is 9. 3 times 10 on the bottom is 30. 5 times 1 is 5. 6 times 5 is 30. Remember, the goal is to make them the same. You did it. You made both the bottoms the same. 9 out of 30 is equivalent to taking 3 out of every 10, right? You wrote a fraction that's the same, just with a different bottom. Now, keep the bottom the same. Don't blow this and make this 60. You took 9 out of 30. I took 5 out of 30. So together, we took 14 out of 30. But 14 and 30 are even numbers. 14 is divisible by 2, and so is 30. Cut them in half. Half of 14 is 7. Half of 30 is 15. This is the work that I have to see. If you decide you're not going to show this step right here, it will cost you 1 point, I promise you. You must show me the work. You don't want to write this there? Fine. Don't write this there. You want to do that in your head? This is the minimum that I have to see. If this is not there, it is going to cost you points. So consider yourself warned. Okay, 4B, 4C. Gave you a lot of letters. Told you what numbers those letters are equal to. You got to just plug them in. Be super careful here. Do this very slow. D is 6, so that part is easy. Now, I have a minus sign. Now, I'm going to replace the A. You see, the minus sign stays there. I'm just going to take the A and put a -2 where it was. But I always put parentheses when I replace a letter. I mean, I didn't have to do it with D because it's just 6. Now, C is -4. I will put parentheses there. Plus, and again, A was -2. Put all your parentheses, it's fine. Now, this is why I did it. You have a -1, right? That's a -1. Negative times a negative is a positive. So that becomes 6 plus 2, right? You're taking away a -2. If you owed $2 and I took that away from you, then that's like me giving you $2. So the negative and the negative make a plus. Now here, you have a -4. If you're adding a -2, that is the same as you taking away 2. I just gave you $2 a day. That's me taking $2 from you. 6 plus 2 is 8. Remember, keep your parentheses. Why? Because this is multiplication, right? There's an invisible dot between them. That's what the parentheses mean. If you lose 4 and you lose 2 more, you lost 6. Now multiply the numbers. 8 and 6, when you multiply them, makes 48. Positive times a negative is negative. There you go. Plug in real careful. There's a lot of mistakes you can make there, so you have to be super careful. Same thing with 4C. I'm going to be super careful when I plug in. I'm going to put my parentheses. Where the B is, I'm going to put a 5. Where the A is, I'm going to put a -2. Very common mistake I see here with the signs. C is -4. And again, D is 6. Right? That's me just plugging in. I didn't do nothing yet. All I did is replace the letters with the numbers. Now I'm going to do 2 times 5, which is 10. A -3 times a -2 is what? Plus 6. Right? 3 times 2 is 6, but they're both negative, so you got to make it plus. I have -4 plus what? 6 times 2 is 12. That's on the bottom. 10 plus 6 on top, 16. On the bottom, be careful. Even though the negative is first, you have $12 and you lose 4 plus 8. It is not -8, right? It's not -12 plus 4. It's 12, right? Put the positive first and you'll see crystal clear. That answer is not negative. Now, as I said to you in class, if this doesn't divide, you effed it up. 16 divided by 8 is 2. It must divide. You do this problem in your test and it doesn't divide, you have to tell me. Put in the chat, say I messed this up. And I'll help you fix whichever number you got wrong. Usually, it's the bottom number that people mess up and then that doesn't divide. So it must divide evenly. All right, it's not going to come out to a fraction that doesn't reduce. It's going to come out to even division. All right. 5D. I was going to try to do D and F at the same time. The problem is I'm afraid of not having enough space. This question can be very tricky. There's a lot to keep track of. You have to keep track of the signs. You have to keep track of the letters and the powers. So again, first, distribute one at a time, very, very carefully. Put a little 1 there if it helps. 2 times 1 is 2. A, well, there's no A there, so you just put A, right? A times 1 is A. B, but the B's match. So there's a B and a B squared, which makes B third, right? You add the powers. There's an invisible 1 there on that B. Now, hop the fence. 2 times -3 is -6. A times A squared is A to the third. What about the B? Goes along for the ride. You have to include that B there. It's wrong if you don't. Done, right? 1, 2, finished. Now move on to him. Again, if it helps, put a 1 there. Distribute. -1 times 1 is -1. You don't have to put it, but I'm putting it. A goes along for the ride. B times B2, B3. 1 more. -1 times -4, again, put a 1 if you need it. Negative times negative is positive. 1 times 4 is 4. A times A2 is A3. What about the B? Along for the ride. Now, who looks the same? Who looks the same? This one. Oh, my green is running out of ink. Oh, man. Horrible. So here, red. Those look the same. And these look the same. So put them together. I have 2 AB3s and I lose 1 AB3. That leaves me with 1 AB3. I don't want to write the 1. Then don't write the 1. -6 A3B, right? A3B, they match. Don't mess with the powers. Just combine them as you see them. You had -6, you get 4. You still lose 2. 2 of what? The A3B creature. There you go. It's not that difficult, but you got to keep track of a lot of stuff. You got to keep track of the signs, the numbers, and the powers. So be very careful with this. All right, 5F. Again, not that bad of a question, but you got to be careful with it. We're going to distribute first, right? The first thing you have to do is you have to get rid of the parentheses. And then you have to take all the terms that are the same and then combine them. So we're going to do W times W, which is W squared, right? Add the powers, 1 and 1. Then I'm going to do W times -4. The -4 goes in front. W goes along for the ride. Done. Now over here, -W times W. Well, W and W make W squared, and it's negative. Distribute again. I have a -W times a +3. Well, a negative times a positive is negative. 3 goes in front. The letter goes along for the ride. And you're taking away 8W. But the problem is right here. You have a W squared, and you lose a W squared. They go away. So what's left? -4, -3, -8. Combine all these numbers together, right? That's -7. And then 8 more, that's 15, right? Just add them up. 4 and 3 make 7. 7 and 8 make 15. You have to keep the sign and add the numbers, right? When the signs are the same. Keep the sign, add the numbers. So you're adding 4, 3, and 8, makes 15. You keep the sign, they're all negative. And then the W goes along for the ride. That's the letter you had. So easy peasy, but just be careful. I see a lot of mistakes people mess up here. Don't be changing the powers when you're adding and subtracting. That doesn't work. Okay, problem 6, just when my lighting went bad. Dividing powers, you subtract them. But I have numbers. Do you subtract them? No. This is 3 divided by 6. So, again, if you need to on the side, right? 6 is 3 times 2. 3 divided by 3 is 1, right? You get a half. We're going to do this a little more efficiently here. 3 goes into 6, boom, twice. Now I'm going to do the powers. You always start with the bigger one. You're going to subtract them. You're going to do 10, take away 2. That makes 8 on the top, right? The negative's already there, so you might as well just leave it there, right? Leave the -1 there. I don't want the 1. Then just put the negative. The 2 is on the bottom though, right? That 3 went into 6 and gave you a 2. Now, again, with the powers, you start with the bigger one. I'm going to do 9, take away 3. 9 minus 3 is 6. Where does it go? It goes on the bottom. There are more Y's down there. Those 3 get crossed out. Those 2 X's got crossed out. So you get X8 on top with the negative. If you don't like the negative there, you can put it here. If you don't like it there, you could put it there. Whatever. The point is that this fraction is negative. So wherever you feel like putting it, it was already on the top, so just leave it on the top. But it doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's there. Don't just not have it there, okay? So you subtract the powers. Remember, you're not dividing them. This is a trap. There's a reason there's a 10 and a 2 there. You don't just say, oh, dividing. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Doesn't work, right? You subtract. Dividing exponents mean you subtract them. Numbers, you do divide. These are not exponents. These are just numbers. So the numbers you divide. Powers you subtract, starting from the larger one. Always start with the larger one. And just subtract. Remember, we don't do negative exponents. They're not allowed. They're undefined. So look at the top of that fraction. I have A5, B3. I have 3 of them and 9 more. They're identical. As long as the letters and the powers are the same, you can combine them into 1. So I will. 3 and 9 make 12. 12 what? Now here's where the huge mistake could happen. You cannot change the powers when you add and subtract. To go back to apples, 3 apples and 2 apples is not 5 apples squared, right? What the hell is an apple squared? The powers don't change when you add. 3 apples and 2 apples make 5 apples. Don't change. So don't change the powers. So combine the top first. You must do that. You can't do the division until you combine the tops. So you combine the tops. Now you divide. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. Let's pause a second. Unpause. And you never knew. You clear my throat with the hot in my voice. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. Now you have A5 and A4. Again, start with the bigger one and subtract. 5 take away 4 is 1. You can put the 1, but you don't have to. Now again, start with the bigger one. B3, take away B1, leaves you with B2. So again, add the top, combine them carefully. Remember, the powers don't change when you add and subtract. This problem would be totally different if this was multiplication. You would add the powers there, but it's not multiplication, it's adding. Adding doesn't change the power. So you add them together and then you do division. Right? Subtract the exponents. Not that bad. I'm going to do a bonus one now because I know it's on your test. All right, I said I was going to do a bonus one. I lied. I'm going to do 2 bonus ones. I know that I have a similar one on your test. So going back to question 4 real quick. I had negative d squared plus d, but d was 6. So keep the negative there. Put parentheses. Put the 6 here. Put the 6 there. Again, parentheses. Now remember, you cannot hop the fence with the power on. You have to shut the power off first. So you're going to do 6 times 6, which is 36. Then hit it with the minus. Plus 6. So you owe me 36, but you pay me 6. You still owe me 30, right? Subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the larger number. 36 minus 6 is 30, and you keep the larger sign. Now, the power one, be very careful here. I'm doing this thing 4 times, right? Picture 4 of them. Boom, 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 boom. Not going to write it. So you're doing 2 to the 4th, and then you're doing x8 to the 4th. Now, the rule with the powers, 2 to the 4th is just 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, right? You do 2 4 times. But when you're doing x8 to the 4, I guess I'll write it. This is what you're doing, right? You're doing each one of those things to the 4th power. You don't have to write this, but I'm showing you for emphasis. This is 2, 2, 2, 2, right? 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. Now, when you do a power to a power, I asked you in the quiz what the mistake was, and you were like, oh, the mistake is to multiply them. That's not a mistake. That is exactly what you do. When you raise a power to a power, you multiply them. So you do 8 times 4, which is 32, and then you do 5 times 4, which is 20. So remember, when you raise a power to a power, you do multiply them. All right, that is not a mistake. So every question that I did right now, all those other ones, you will see them all on your first exam. So all I can really do is wish you luck.